Let's do it, buddy.
Troup, Smooch, and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode.
Come on.
It's coming up tonight.
Yeah, it is. Give me the drop.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show. Your hosts, Troup, Brenson, and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch. So excited to be here tonight, episode 101.
101.
Cleared that hurdle last week with a great couple of shows. We had such a build-up, Smooch, to those at 99 and 100th episode. And if you haven't heard them, we are very pleased with how that turned out.
Yeah.
Just great stuff and just a great guest and great content.
It was, some of the, you meet all these guests, you meet your friends, your colleagues, if you will, in the online sphere, and you don't know how it's in music and playing in different bands, like sitting in with a band here and there. There's a saying, and it's hard to cook in someone else's kitchen. But all the guests we brought in came in and cooked last week. Yes. It was absolutely outstanding. And we had a blast. Troup and I were just talking about that. We had so much fun. The idea that it produces a viable product that other people want to listen to is just a bonus, because we had a blast just doing it.
Yep, and man, if you think that nothing's going on this time of year in football, and you kind of, you're tuning in to see what we got to say, man, things are cooking right now for Georgia in the recruiting season. We're going to touch on that later on in the show. Had some commitments in the past week. We expect to have some more soon, and it's really kind of bolting Georgia back up to the top of the recruiting rankings. We like to follow that. It's just for entertainment value, but it means something. It's saying something that when you're in the top of these rankings, you win national championships, because the Jimmies and the Joes definitely matter. Let me preface the show tonight. We're going to start out early with our Delusional Fan Alert, but we're going to do the top 5 most delusional fan bases at this time of year. Right now in June 2024, the top 5 most delusional fan bases. And then we're going to move on. We got Scott Fitzgerald on again tonight. You guys heard him last week. He's going to do the Inside Slant, talk a little bit about Georgia's coaching staff and their defense. And what's next, Smooch? We got a couple other things coming up. We're going to talk about a recruiting again, and then
a listener question we took earlier in the week, and that I think is actually a fabulous topic of conversation. I can tell you now, spoiler alert, Troup and I come down on 2 different answers to this question. So we're going to discuss that and have a good time with that as well.
Yeah. We'll talk recruiting, then we'll talk about some of those iconic plays and discuss that just a little bit. So power pack show, a lot going on, and we don't want to waste any more time. We are ready to get right into it. Hit the DFA, Smooch.
So delusion is a fixed false belief that doesn't change in light of conflicting evidence.
They don't know reality from their dream worlds, and they won't go outside and play.
A fixed false belief that is not grounded in reality.
There it is.
Delusional Fan Alert. And we're widely known for this segment.
Yeah.
We enjoy it. We enjoy it just as much as you do. We know what makes you folks happy and what conversely makes our rival fans unhappy. And lots of displeasure, discontent. But we talked about this a little pre-show and during the week, the teams that we feel are most overrated by their own fans, really.
Right.
And that's are delusional in their expectations. And we're going to start it right out, Smooch, with number 5. Number 5, most delusional fan base in June 2024. The Alabama Crimson Tide.
The Alabama Crimson Tide. Wait, you know what? We need a laugh track right there, which I've lost all of a sudden. There we go. Troup, the Alabama Crimson Tide, that's one. It's interesting. they in a way have earned the right to be delusional because of their history, but there is this, with Alabama, you have this, do you remember in the movie Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby's partner, Cal, is asking him, hey, maybe at some point I can win. And Ricky Bobby goes, well,
No.
yeah, but if you win, how am I going to win? And that's kind of like Alabama, the Alabama fans' approach to all other teams. Why do you guys want to win? If you win, that means we don't win. But we're Alabama. We win. Yeah.
Guess what, Alabama fans? We know about your trophy case.
Alabama!
We know that you enjoy sitting on the back porch and reminiscing. And we think this is a great time for reminiscing because Georgia Bulldogs, we don't have much need to reminisce. We're looking forward to this season and next season. It's the confluence, though, that has gotten you to this point. The retirement of the greatest of all time, Nick Saban, who was already, his product was already trending down. Now you got Kalen DeBoer and a new coaching staff, and it rarely works out the way you think it will. I'm not saying he won't be a good coach, but Smooch just said it over and over and over. You don't lose Nick Saban and get better.
There it is.
And so there it is. Alabama number 5.
Alabama number 5. I agree with that 100%. By the way, I should say, honorable mention, Alabama just edged out Florida on this list. Okay, but
Yeah.
on
If
to
Florida had a
number
little more success, they were there.
right. If they were any better, they'd be on.
Their fans are smoking cigarettes and drinking gallons of sweet tea. So
You can
not
tell
much
he's
time to
played
complain,
for the
right?
Gators. He's smoking cigarettes and drinking gallons
All
of
right,
tea.
let's move right on down the line to number 4.
Number 4.
The USC Trojans.
The USC Trojans. I think that the USC Trojans, we started seeing it last year, right? With, you've got a glaring deficiency, a team-wise deficiency. You call it defense, which for USC, defense is what you play when the other team has the ball. It's a little fuzzy there sometimes. But anyway, so they add a player in Bear Alexander. Guess what? All the deficiencies are gone, Troup. This is now a top defense in the country. And then now if you rate your top defenses by being within the top 150 teams in the country, then yes, USC had a top defense. But even those abject failures that are undeniable and documentable, you can see by what we're flashing up here on the screen right now, the absolute delusion shown by USC, it still doesn't slow them down looking at this season, Troup Brinson.
Yeah, and you can't get better just – it's good to recognize your deficiency. It's good to say, if we just play defense, we got a shot. Yeah, but we've seen that you don't play defense and you don't have the roster to play defense. Your coach is not committed to defense. You bring in Coach Henne.
It's all better.
He was an NFL coach and claimed that he had something to do with Aaron Donald being all-world. He didn't. It's smoke and mirrors. We want you. We want you to do better. We want you to beat Utah, the Utes.
That's right.
We want you to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you can't just do it. You can't wish and won't do it for you. You got to prove it. Last year you guys said, okay, we got a better defensive line than Georgia does. You finished, I think, 116th in the country. There aren't that many teams.
Right.
132, 130.
Right.
Yeah. So you got to do it. If you do it for a couple years and your coaching staff, it proves that they can coach and develop defensive players and have them come in and they can keep them off of the beach and, whatever else you got going on down there.
Well, that's how they get them there. That's the problem. See, that's how they lure them.
So, but you got to prove it. Prove it, then we'll become believers. Right now, you're delusional.
You're delusional. And, I think some of it has to be with how isolated they are from actual real football. They have this elevated level of two-hand touch football or flag football out there. But when they have to mix it up and hit real men, there's going to be a problem. But I will say, before we move on to number 4, I do want to say, hey, guys, I can confirm on the dog. We've been getting asked about this. Zulu Trojan has agreed to come on the Dog Show, and we're going to have a great time. He is a great voice for USC, and he's become a good friend just going back and forth. So we're looking forward to that.
He's delusional too, but we still like him.
Yeah, he thinks we're delusional. So let's see what happens when you put us together.
All right, let's move on to number 3. The most delusional fan bases.
3.
The Colorado Buffaloes.
The Colorado Buffaloes.
Now, I will say the Buffaloes, rarely do you contend so vigorously for number 1 and still fall to number 3. That just lets you know that it was a tight race. This top 3, very, very tight. Colorado, really, they earned number 1, Smooch. I feel bad for them because they put in the work to be the most delusional fan base all season. The last couple years, the Coach Prime brigade, brigade, what do you want to call them? Man, they are in full force every day on social media, and they fully believe, strangely enough, they won 4 games last year? They're competing for a postseason spot, and if they lose, I was reading a thread yesterday. It's not satire. It should be that 1 or 2 losses is still. It would be okay if they lost 1 or 2. They wouldn't love that, but they expect to be a difference maker in college football in 2024.
That's unbelievable. I think what kept Colorado out of the number 1 spot is just lack of experience in being delusional. They didn't get delusional until primetime showed up. And so they really only have a season under their belt with this delusion. But I will tell you, one player, Shedeur Sanders, no one says he's not good. He's not talented. There's no one that thinks that. However, are there people outside of Colorado, 99% of everyone not in Colorado, that thinks he's going to struggle mightily behind a terrible offensive line, especially the first time they have to play real competition? Yes, you guys, with Colorado, there are some pieces, but what they're relying on is these guys' star rankings to equal production on the field. And so they may be 1 deep at one position, but that guy was a 4-star, so he's going to be great. Let me tell you something. These teams over in the SEC, they're 3 deep and 4 stars and 5 stars at a position. And there's several 5-stars on every team in the SEC that never make it. Colorado's counting for a 100% success rate on prospects, and it's just statistically impossible.
Yeah, and they're also counting on portal players to come on immediately make an impact. And it is all the ifs, and we've covered that with another team we'll talk about soon, likely, Tennessee Volunteers, that if you don't build it from the ground up, and they've learned that now, I think, that if it's not the ground up, meaning in the trenches, those skill players don't mean anything. That if you could have
undivided attention real quick.
You got it, buddy. Those you could have an all-world quarterback, and without an offensive line, those skill players won't be able to keep up. There's going to be games where you just can't get it done, and you can't keep your team in the game. We saw USC with Caleb Williams lose 5 games. We're going to see Shedeur Sanders, who is not on Caleb Williams' level at all, and he's going to struggle this year. If they reach 500 success, but that delusional fan base won't accept that, and we don't even know if Deion's going to be coaching past this year anyway. So.
100%. And Troup, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like Shedeur Sanders has shown the maturity to take a bunch of hits that he didn't earn in a game due to lackluster play on the line and still be an effective leader whose teammates love him, whose teammates want to lay down and track for him? Does he have that maturity to lead through that? And my answer would be no. The first time he thinks another player's bad play is costing him draft position or money, he's going to turn on his team. That's what I've seen from Shedeur so far. So that's going to be interesting.
That's culture. We talk about culture. Culture looks great when you're winning, but when you start losing and you don't have that culture, that's when all the problems show up. We see that throughout college football every year.
Absolutely.
And now down to the top 2, who again,
top 2,
so close. These teams
thin.
are really razor thin difference. And so let's move on to number 2. The Ohio State Buckeyes.
The Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yes. I am sorry to say. Well, I will say this. It's not that unusual, Ohio State being ranked number 2. They can't seem to climb that mountain and get to number 1 despite all the preseason accolades. But, again, right here at number 2.
Right. Well, so much of this has to do It's funny, of all the teams on this list, Ohio State's position has less to do with the team they actually have. It just has to do more with the unprecedented entitlement of this fan base.
Yes.
This belief that we're football royalty. We roll out of bed and we're ranked top 3 because it's just us. And you know, you can't handle Michigan, yet you think you're ready for the rest of the world. And the fans, it's very similar. You know, you keep hearing themes. That's how you end up on the Delusional Index, the Delusional Fan Alert, is you have these common threads, and theirs is we had deficiencies, so we plugged them, so that means they're all good, and everybody's going to play to the top of their ability. The top transfer in the whole portal is going to come in and be all world. A freshman wide receiver is going to come in and be NFL ready. A quarterback that we can't even name is going to come in and set the world on fire.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is based on a couple of things that we know who you are, Ryan Day. At this point, we know who Ryan Day is. He's not coming out this year and changing our minds or anybody's minds. And, you know, the running theme right now across college football and the media, too, they know that Ohio State are excuse makers. I saw something, I think today, another excuse. They just keep making excuses, and it permeates throughout their program and their fan base. And it's the culture. And you've heard Ryan Day do it over and over and over. Can't get past losses, can't just give credit and move on. And that makes you look bad, and it makes your fans delusional because the expectations. You know, you should expect to win, but we don't know what your offense is going to do this year. You might have a great defense, but you can't score 20, 30 points a game. You're gonna beat some sisters of the poor, but you're not going to beat teams that really matter.
Troup, Brinson, excuses are the battle cry of the entitled. That is just exactly Ohio State in a nutshell.
Ohio State number 2. Can't get over the hump.
No.
But we have a team that consistently competes for this title of most delusional fan base. Anytime it comes up, number 1 on the Delusional Fan Alert, the Tennessee Volunteers.
The Tennessee Volunteers. Knoxville's illegitimate son.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You know, so there was a little debate about putting them number 1, but we figured that this was the one time that they would maybe hold on to this number 1 position for longer than 4 days this time. Yes, that's right. That's right. Because we're not hypo believers. We're not hypo believers. We don't. I think he's a decent offensive coordinator. Runs a gimmick offense. You know that better than anybody. And they don't like to hear that. I mean, if you run a gimmick offense and you win, and if you win, you compete for championships. Who cares? Call it what you want it. But that's not where they've been. They've had all the ifs they try to line up, and now they got a big if. If Nico, say his last name,
Iyamaleva.
Yeah. If we talked about him last week, we had a good segment on him. If he can come through and be the savior at such a young age, you know, they'll be right in these games and have a chance to win some games. Sure. And prove us wrong. But not yet. We're gonna have him at 1 for a while, I believe.
Yeah, you know, I've been hitting the message boards and just kind of drinking it in, not even really participating in the discussion, just watching the expectations. And I don't even want to see the expectations, the guarantees that they see over Nico. At one point I made a comment to someone. I said, you know, Nico's a big if, but if that if works out for Tennessee, they're going to have a much better season. And the person actually, you know, reposted that comment and said, can you believe this guy called Nico an if? I'm like,
but if he works out, guess what they do? They move on to the next if.
They move on to the next
if right behind there. It's another if there. He's not. He can have a great season, and doesn't mean everything else for them. There's still roster issues, and you still got Josh Heupel.
How many seasons have we been hearing Squirrel White's about to blow up?
Yeah,
I've been hearing that since Hooker was there.
It's kind of like overvaluing, and we all do this to a certain extent, overvalue your own team's players, whatever sport it may be. And until, you know, they prove you wrong, you have a rough season, then you move on to the next group of players. But the reason that Tennessee is number one, and you mentioned it earlier with Colorado, is that Tennessee has earned this. They have earned it the last couple of seasons. They have worked really hard to get this number one spot. Last year, they told us that Joe Milton, he was a fifth-year senior, he was going to take the next step. He was, everything they needed to see. Yeah. He was, and there was no reason they weren't going to slide right in. He wasn't going to slide right into that offense and dominate, and Tennessee was going to compete for a championship. We told him, Smooch. Mm-hmm. We told him. You said 3 to 5 losses. You losing 3 to 5 games this year, and they thought that was ridiculous.
Oh, they
Show me
us.
Where are those losses? They kept saying. Where are they? Count them. I got 4 of them.
Yeah, there's 4, and including the first one we called, which was Florida. But the thing with the thing with Tennessee, at first, when I hear them say, and this is an important point to remember about this fan base, and this is what makes their delusion the sort of top of the heap delusion. When you talk to someone and you say, you honestly believe Tennessee will compete for a national title this year? Absolutely. And my first thought is, you're lying through your tooth. There's no way you actually believe that's going to happen. But that's where I was wrong, Troup. They do believe it. They believe it. Alabama, I don't think they believe their bluster. I think deep down they know that things are going to get rocky ahead. Tennessee, they believe this stuff, and that's what makes delusion pure and completely undiluted, is you have to believe it. And no one believes something that is provably wrong more than the Tennessee fan.
Gotta love them. And then they have had a long couple of decades trying to get, I think everything changed for them. They really flipped over and went, over the hill a little bit when they beat Alabama. Then all things were possible at that point. But at this point, we've mentioned this offense requires a lot out of your quarterback. And we said last year, if Joe Milton isn't that dude, you're going to know it. You're going to know it. Their offense struggled last year because Joe Milton wasn't that dude. So they're putting a lot of pressure on a quarterback who hasn't been through this, hasn't been through the struggles. Yeah, as in spot duty, he looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and say he looks spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
He's a little frail. He's tall and skinny, and he likes to use his legs. Got a good arm. Looks like he can control an offense to an extent, but
he looks like he could fit inside of Joe Milton. That's that's what it looks like. Yeah.
So if all those ifs lined up, we'll look really stupid, but we'll own it. But I do want to say congratulations to Tennessee.
Congratulations, Tennessee. Number 1 delusional fan base.
Woo.
That's right.
Sometimes we push the DFA towards the end of the show, but we want to make sure you guys can enjoy it. And I think that was a pretty good one.
It's our calling card. We have to keep it up front, right?
I think we'll update these as well. We'll kind of update them and maybe keep it running, as things progress. And
this will continue throughout the season. Absolutely.
Different things will transpire. We can move you up or down, but I think these 5 teams are definitely going to be in contention all year long.
That's how we selected these 5. I really think these 5 will be there at the end in some way, at least 4 of them, So I feel good about the list.
So we had Scott Fitzgerald on last episode. It'd been a while since we got him on here, and we said, man, he just sounded so good. He fits right in with our podcast so much, and some good information too. We're going to bring him right now, I guess, with the Inside Slant.
Let's do it.
The Inside Slant.
Yes. It's been a while since we've had the Inside Slant with Scott Fitzgerald, but after last week, and we got Scott back into the groove on the Dawgs Show. He's back again for another segment. How are you, Scott?
Good tonight, guys. Appreciate y'all having me on back-to-back weeks.
Well, the people would have it no other way. You were a huge hit when you turned the camera at the tree and said that looked like Roderick Robinson. You made a lot of fans for some reason. So.
Yeah.
We'll see it soon
enough. We've had a good week. We do thank you folks again for that. All the response from episode 100 last week, and we're moving quickly towards 200. But we wanted to talk a little bit about Georgia's defense. And it is a time of the year where there's not a whole lot going on. Baseball season just ended, and so we're going to dive down a little bit more into some different aspects of Georgia football. And we all saw last year, Scott, where there was just a little something missing from Georgia's defense, especially the run defense. And but something else is that we do have, and there's been a little bit of a coaching shift as Muschamp's kind of taken backed off a little bit. He's going to be an analyst, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. But I wanted to hear, let's talk about Glen Shuman a little bit. What do we know about Shuman, and what does he look, what do people think about him across the country?
Glen, man, he is, first of all, just brings a ton of energy. You know, I often wonder why, how Kirby just does it. I mean, how does he keep that energy level at where he keep, and we don't even see it all. I mean, every time he talks to a recruit, to that recruit, it's like he's the only one they're talking to all day. He's talked to probably hundreds and got to be worn out at some point, but they always bring that energy, and Shuman's the same way. I think it's somewhat of a personality type that Kirby attracts. I mean, Dan Lanning was no different. Dan's got charisma. He's got just unlimited energy. Obviously still inexperienced as a head coach, but you could just see he was going to be a head coach one day. He's going to do really well. Shuman's probably in that same category. He might not be quite as you don't see him in front of a microphone quite as often, maybe, but he is a bright cat and just very energetic, hard worker. He's been with Kirby since, I guess, as I understood it, it was him and Nick and Kirby in the room, when they were designing defenses, and this is when he was in his early 20s. So he's been very well respected for a long time. The recruits obviously love him. I mean, just look at the guys he brought in. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I would say, you talk about, every Batman has a Robin. If you want to talk about the defensive side of things, I mean, Muschamp was a head coach, obviously a very successful guy. We've had other good coaches on that defensive side of the ball, and we still do. But I mean, you got to think Shuman's the Robin to Batman, because he has reeled in some unbelievable talent, and not only reeled them in, but he doesn't. Once he gets them there, it seems like they get better.
Yes.
I don't have to go over the guys we've had in the past, but I mean, last year, I mean, man, we were banged up on the defensive side of the ball. We were limited up front, but we didn't have any dudes on that front line. Not the dudes that we've had in the past. We had very good players, but we didn't have Trayvon Walker. We didn't have a Jordan Davis. We didn't have a number 88. That could move three people at one time. So not only that, we were also banged up at linebacker. I mean, Small Munden was hurt all year, and I think you're going to see a completely different animal when you put him and C.J. Allen back there. And got the likes of Jalen Walker and Troy Bowles and Sam Mapimba, and I can Chaz Chambliss, very, very strong, player as well. So, he has not only brought in some really dynamic players, but he coaches them up when he gets there. So I feel like he's probably severely underrated nationally. And he's one guy that I hope we can keep around a long time. And I hope I think Dan got into a situation where he probably, wasn't going to maybe take that job unless it was one like Oregon, but he couldn't turn that down. And so, you just maybe Shuman waits around until he gets the right offer. And, I know Dan was smart enough to do that. And probably he would have waited if it hadn't have been something like that, I feel like. But it'd be nice.
It may be Alabama in about 2 years.
It may be. I'm telling you, man. He is. He really brings a lot to the table. Another thing, he and Kirby do, which is I think brilliant, especially in this day and age, even more so than ever. And they've done this for 3 or 4 years. The defense, the schemes of what they run defensively are very, 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 very complex. So first of all, I know David Pollock says, see ball, get ball on the defensive side, but you got to know what you're doing to play defense in Georgia's system. So it's very complex. You have to, pay attention every play, because if you'll notice, teams that go fast against us, somehow we manage to substitute when we're allowed to substitute, and we're not out of position, and we don't get penalties. And I know y'all remember the Van Gorder days when we would have people running off the field, on the field, didn't know what they were doing, and it was just
looking towards the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable how
we don't speak about that on this show, but yeah.
It's incredible. And then secondly, another thing they do and have done for years is they get a lot of people involved. So you might have 7 or 8, 9, 10 defensive packages. Well, they may only run a couple in a given week, but those guys, even the younger guys maybe that aren't in a starting lineup, they're given roles and assignments, and they better know them because, hey, if we're going to run package X this week, you got to be ready to go. So he keeps them involved, not only on defense, but on because if you're good enough playing Georgia defense, you're good enough on special teams, and in special teams. So he gives everybody a role, and it's next man up mentality. But you also know you might be the man up because you might be in a package this week, and they may run that package 50% of the time. So pretty smart way to keep everybody involved without having to expect so much out of a freshman. Maybe a freshman that's not ready to contribute at that level. Because of all the stuff you have to grasp in that defense. So if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be on the field because you can't play fast if you're thinking right. But I'm super excited to see this linebacker core, man. I mean, C.J. Allen. I mean, he's got All-American written all over him. I think Small Munden, a healthy Small Munden, running sideline to the sideline is going to be something fun to watch. And then these younger guys that are coming along, and then we just got a 5-star in Zayden Walker and another guys at Jaden Parlow. We'll see if he winds up sticking. I think he's kind of flirting around a little bit. But anyway, I just think Shuman's underrated, and what we'll have defensively this year will be a step or two up from what we saw last year and what we've all been used to.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the. I think Smile Munden. It's a couple of things about that are kind of difficult to wrap your mind around. Number one, how long he's now been in the program. It seems like just the other day we were hearing about this kid that might be one of the best athletes on the team that plays linebacker. Yeah. And people don't realize we did a breakout player. You were on our 100th episode. We asked everyone for a breakout player. And one of our, I believe it was on the TikTok platform, one of our listeners there said, my breakout player hands down is Smile Munden. If he just stays healthy, you might not be talking about some of these other guys right now. And I think that C.J. Allen and Munden on the field, healthy at the same time, provides an athletic punch that even Georgia fans haven't seen in a little while.
Well, think about last year in the game. It's the championship game, wasn't it? Didn't we have 2 freshmen? Wasn't it C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, and one of them got kind of caught. Didn't get out and cover the back out of the backfield. I mean, that's just a freshman mistake, but. When's the last time you've seen Georgia in a championship game have 2 freshman linebackers on the field? So, man, we were, again, making excuses. Everybody gets hurt. It's just part of the deal. But that was a lot to expect.
Well, there's a law of averages.
We lost that game offensively just with the mistakes we made. I know we were hurt, but we still should have won that game. And did some things that we uncharacteristically don't do. But I think it was just kind of one of those kind of perfect case scenarios. I think I might have said this on the 100th episode, but it was kind of talking to a buddy of mine about this the other day. It's like we were 46-2 in our last 48. Only 2 losses to Alabama. We were undefeated last year, unprecedented again. I don't know how many we had run 1 in a row at the time, and we lose 1 game in the last couple of minutes with people banged up all over the field. It's like Georgia's just an afterthought all of a sudden. So. Yeah. I think the Georgia's going to have something to prove and going to have a bitter taste in their mouth coming out of that season last year.
Kirby will milk every single bit out of that snub in the playoff, and you could feel it coming. The whole season, It just felt, with injuries especially, there's this law of averages, this pendulum. Sometimes you don't have injuries, but sooner or later, the reality and laws of average are just going to catch up with you. And it felt like last year was Georgia's year to experience some bad luck. And there was just bad luck. So many things had to happen wrong for Georgia to lose that game to Alabama, and they did. And
it's happened to the Braves this year, so it happens.
Thank goodness for the recruiting. And like you said, with Glen Shuman, and he has brought in some classes on those linebackers. I mean, I think we mentioned this last year, early in the season, that sometimes you don't know what you got. I mean, you have potential and you're excited about your players, but you look back in a couple of years to see some of these linebackers that are on the field at the same time, not just linebackers, just defensively, and it's going to be like it was. I really think you got some of those guys like Channing Tindall and who else? Walker and
Trayvon. Yeah,
Nakobe. All those guys were out there, and man, I think we have that kind of talent now. Like Scott said, yes, we put them in situations last year, and they did well. But you put them in situations last year that will cost you from time to time because they were freshmen, and you would rather have freshmen coming in there just for a play or two. You don't want them. You surely don't want them taking 40, 50 snaps. And I don't think they did for the most part. But with Pop Johnson injured, Smile Munden injured, and then you just had to have those guys, just the raw athleticism. And their learning curve, they met the challenge pretty well. But it's that second year. And this year, just like you're going to see across the board, that defense is going to take another step up, I believe, to get back to where it was in 2021 and 2022.
And think about the snaps those guys played, though, and the experience that they, last year. That's going to pay, I feel like, huge dividends, coming into this year. I mean, those are snaps that they necessarily wouldn't have gotten if everybody would have been healthy. So
right.
It's gonna be a big deal. But, yeah, Shuman is, plus he's got that jumpsuit on, 100 degrees outside. It doesn't matter. He's got his sweats on. He's sweating underneath. So that's just his standard operating procedure. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed that, but 100 degrees. He wears a sweat shirt and then sweatpants every practice. It can be 105. It can be 74. It can be 50. That's what he's gonna have on.
That's delightfully eccentric.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's known for that.
There's something about this coaching staff, Smooch, and we look at other coaching staffs and we judge them by the things they do a lot of times, and we see it every day. I mean, I saw Eli Drinkwitz doing something that was kind of cringy today, and you see Dabo, you see some of Alabama's new coaches. Georgia's coaches always seem so authentic and like they don't look like they're trying too hard to be something or to connect in some kind of a strange way with some of these kids. It's just a part of that whole culture, that vibe that they have. They don't have to. It just kind of flows naturally.
Yeah, I think that the one thing the NIL has done, there have been a lot of misconceptions about what actually attracts a young man coming out of high school. The thought that the way that some of these schools treat NIL is that it is everything. That's everything the kid wants. So let's put on a circus and make him the ringmaster so that he wants to come play with us. And that's how they attract players. Georgia can actually say, look, here's what's going to happen if you come here. Here's how you're going to work. Here you're going to get broken down, torn down. You're going to doubt your own abilities, and when you come out the other end, you're going to be the very best you could possibly be when you go to make this a career. And if you decide you'd rather go somewhere else for the money, you're not really one of us in the first place. And that's a very easy to understand. And to a young person that's maybe confused coming out of high school, all these people in their ear telling you got to come here, you got to come here, you got to come here. Sometimes something simple and real and genuine, it resonates. And that's the reason you see these late flips, you see these last minute commitments, and you see things like a wide receiver that Ohio State is chasing select the Bulldogs. It's that same type of mentality.
Yeah, and like that. But think about it, if you get 85 guys that buy into that, and you get obviously your share of blue chippers, which we do. I mean that's going to rise to the top. When the chips are down, no question about it.
100%.
So we just hope that Georgia's defense is going to take another big step forward this year, like we mentioned, and Shuman's going to get a lot of credit for that. And so hopefully he follows the same route that Kirby did and Lanning did, and he waits for that job that you can't turn down. And he's not going to be a Georgia defensive coordinator forever, so he'll get a head coaching offer or a opportunity soon, I would think. Just hope he's there a couple more years, and Kirby's already kind of preparing for that, as he seems to do, have a plan B or have somebody in training.
Yeah, and like just the last thing, if we, fingers crossed, we'll stay healthy up front. These young guys that are so talented will develop behind the veterans we've got. And if that happens, I think that's when we're going to see the athleticism in the back end of this defense, which is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, wait to see it. Glad to have you on, Scott. Appreciate you on episode 101, Inside Slant.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy.
Inside Slant.
All right. Thank you, Scott Fitzgerald. We appreciate you so much. Another great segment.
As always.
And, as always. And we appreciate your time. We're got a couple more segments to do before we wrap this episode up. We're going to talk some recruiting right now. And recruiting is at a fever pitch. If you didn't realize, I mean, everything's changed, it feels like, Smooch, over the past few years, especially with the recruiting cycles. Most of these guys getting on board in December. And so these months are really big for the big official visits happen in the summer before they go back to school. And Georgia's been reaping some benefits. They got a commitment from a defensive lineman a week or so ago, Christian Garrett. Let me pull that up. He is a 4-star, and let's see, 6'4", 290 from Bogart. That's Prince Avenue. And I have a little bit of experience with him as my hometown team, Swainsboro, in the state championship the last 2 years against Prince Avenue, and he was a big defensive lineman and a big reason that they won both those state championships. Also had a terrific quarterback and skill players. But Christian Garrett is verbally committed to Georgia, and a very highly rated 4-star. Georgia also got, you might have heard, a very highly rated receiver. We expect this to start happening more and more, Smooch.
Yeah.
As some of these receivers who have been – people have used – this Georgia's offense,
the negative recruiting
and saying, you shouldn't go to Georgia. That should be changing after the last 2 or 3 years with all the offense they put up, all the passing numbers. Evidence is a tough thing to get past. And when they come to Georgia, they show you the proof. This is what's really happening. I don't care what these other recruiters are trying to say. Well, it was Talon Taylor, 4-star, 6'1", 180 pounds. From Geneva, Illinois, and he is a top 15 receiver in the country, top 50 player.
Yeah,
and he is the second 4-star receiver so far, and still some meat on the bone. A couple of big receivers still to make the decisions.
And Talon Taylor, only if he shuts everything down, he stays a 4-star. He's 5-star talent all the way. Twitchy. Think I heard a comp today on I think Locked On Bulldogs. They compared him to Lad McConkey. And I know why they said that. They said that because of his route running. But I get he's a good route runner. I see Mecole Hardman with a catch radius. That's what I see in Talon Taylor. It's that suddenness, that jitterbug that Mecole had. And then he has these, for 6'1", he's got these long arms. He just reaches out and fluidly, in motion, reaches out and catches the ball. And just a fabulous looking prospect. And I did want to say on Christian Garrett, the one thing about him when I watched his film, he's already 6'3", 285. He's not chubby. He doesn't have that baby fat like a lot of these guys do when they come in. So I expect him to really thicken up and look like a Georgia player a lot sooner than later.
Yeah, he's been coached really well. I know that his head coach is Brock Vandergrift's dad.
Right.
And so they have really good coaching there. One of our ex-Swainsboro players is actually an assistant coach there. So getting some inside information for what goes on in practice. So I know he's coached really well. Another commitment was 3-star athlete Todd Robinson from Valdosta. And so he's another can do everything. They don't know if he's going to play running back or defensive back. Looks like he's leaning to play defensive back, safety maybe. But he can play all over the field. And so get those top players in from a great program like Valdosta. So that's going to help. I will mention a couple of players. I will say before I go down some of this commitment list, another big weekend in Athens as number 1 defensive player in the country, Elijah Griffin, who is a Georgia lean, but man, he is a beast on the defensive line. And he's that one player that if you could name anybody, he's the one that Georgia is selling out to get him to sign with the team.
Well, we just heard from Scott just a second ago, right? Talking about what left when Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, what left when they walked out the door. This is the type of player that could bring that right back in the door for you in terms of his ability to get the pass rush up the field.
Yeah, he's been there several times. He'll be in Athens again this weekend. But a couple of big players. I don't know if you guys know how generational this next player is, and he's already committed to Georgia and shut down his recruiting. Elias Williams, 6'7", 235 pound tight end, wide receiver from Camden County, folks in South Georgia. And folks, he is huge. And I heard, if you know anything about recruiting and some of those experts and gurus, Rusty Manziel does it better than anybody else. He's with On 3 right now. And Dawgs HQ, he compared him. He said he is like AJ Green in what's his name's body? Oh my goodness,
Darnell Washington.
Darnell Washington body. Think about that. Let that sink in. AJ Green type skill in a Darnell Washington type body. I would just take Darnell Washington type body, but that AJ Green type skill. Wow, what a comparison.
That's the difference in watching them. So when you watch Darnell's high school film, he looked like a giant guy that was fast. I would compare him more to a freight train, right? He was just like this monster, 280 pounds, catches the ball and can run, and he could block and all that. When you watch Elias Williams, if you don't see him standing next to anyone, he looks like a wide receiver. He's fast, but he's twitchy. He's agile. Whereas Darnell Washington was fast and explosive and straight ahead. So there is a difference. I definitely see the AJ Green comp with him. So, man, that is one to keep an eye on. Hands down, number one tight end in the country, and could not wait to shut down his commitment to come to the Dogs.
That's great. That sounds great. And, of course, we talked about Talon Taylor. He's a high 4-star. He could be a 5-star before it's over, like you said.
He'll be a 5-star.
And Zayden Walker, who just committed recently, he's that number one linebacker in the country that can get to the quarterback and cover. And so he's one of the other jewels in this recruiting class.
Yeah, just in that Smile Mondon, C.J. Allen mold, just right up there with those. Could be better than both of them. Could not, but he has the talent too.
Yes, so some of these recent commitments have pushed Georgia up, because about a week or so ago, 10 days ago, they were down 10 or 12 in On 3 rankings, and now they're up to number 3. And we've seen some of our rivals posting, you say we can't recruit. Well, it's June, and Georgia just starts going right now as these guys come in and get to visit. Those March commitments and the celebrations that you get in March, Georgia knows how to close. Georgia does a great job. Nobody does it like Kirby Smart and his staff. So I expect these commitments to kind of buoy the class, but there's so many more that we've heard are leans or are solid commitments who are highly, highly rated, who are going to, like we say, buckle up.
Yeah,
because these commitments are going to start. They're already started to roll in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble or lose any of our people that are kind enough to talk to us off the record. But Dogs fans, you haven't seen anything yet. Just wait till you see what's coming. That's
Yep. And we've got some receipts and bookmarks for some of our friends on Twitter that when some of these things are made public, then we're gonna have some fun with you.
With great delight, we will take to the.
It's hard to do it. It's hard to do it now with the transfer portal, because you could be celebrating a player and he could be there for a couple of months and then decide, I don't think I can crack 3 deep here. I don't care what my star ranking is, and I got to go somewhere else. So you never know. But we'll enjoy each step and for what it is. But that's our recruiting update, and we expect to have a little something every week, because like I said, this is a big time of year.
Right.
Next month or so, before these players get on their high school campuses and start preparing for the season. A lot of them go ahead and make their decision and shut it down, hopefully. Some of them will carry it all the way through, but some of them just want to be done with it because it's been a long haul.
Yeah, understandable.
Dumb idiots of this world.
But our next segment, Smooch, and we tell us about how we got to this topic.
All right, so we get listener questions regularly. We encourage you to keep doing it, by the way. You can leave them we have our direct messages open on every platform. You can comment a question to us on YouTube. You can message us on TikTok, Instagram. We don't check Instagram every single day. We kind of have somebody does that for us. So, but if you really want to get us, Twitter, X, whatever, TikTok, YouTube, those are the best ways to get a hold of us. And every once in a while, a question comes in that's so good, it could be a show segment. And this is one of them. So CD Rob 88 messaged us on, I believe, our TikTok platform, if I'm not mistaken, with the following. He said, Dog fan here. Love the pod clips. I recently had a debate with another Dog fan, and we want to settle the debate. So, question. Which of the 3 plays had the biggest impact in Georgia football history? Run, Lindsey, run. hobnail boot, or Keely Ringo's pick six? Fabulous question.
Those are all three iconic plays, and I remember. I don't recall the run Lindsey run when it happened. I was only 8 years old or 7 or 8 years old, but of course we've heard it over and over. We know the impact that had.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting run Lindsey run. I don't remember it either because I was young, but I remember my parents freaking out over it because it happened. Of course, it happened against Florida. I remember commotion in the living room, and as I got older, put it together that was that moment. Yeah.
And of course, I do remember the other two. I was watching that game at home, the Tennessee game, the hobnail boot game, and I remember it because Georgia was desperately trying to knock off Tennessee. Tennessee had their number, and for a while, and they had it looked like they had a lead, and Tennessee then dropped a little pass off to I think Travis Stevens, and he had a long touchdown reception / run. Well, and it was in the last 2 minutes of the game, and I was just beside myself that we had to let another one get away.
Yeah. Well, let's go through. Let's refresh. Let's not assume everyone listening to this podcast. They may be new Dawgs fans. So we're going to give you Munson's call of Run Lindsey Run right here. Here you go.
Back third down on the 8. In trouble. Got a block behind him. Going to throw and a run. Complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsey's got 35, 40. Lindsey's got 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, Lindsey. 25, 20, 50, 10, 5. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop. Lindsey stop. Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight?
I did a little cut there to get that. He says that a few moments later, but I wanted to make sure we got that in. It captures it. You talk about GOATs. Larry Munson is the unquestioned GOAT. That's 1980. Georgia's trailing 21-19 when Lindsey Scott took that pass and went 93 yards.
Crazy.
Beautiful.
Play the hobnail boot because then David Green, I believe, brought Georgia quickly down the field, and then a little pass over the middle. The play was called P44 Haynes.
That's right.
Dumped it off to Haynes, and they called that the hobnail boot play.
10 seconds. We're on their 6th straight, and there's a touchdown! My God, a touchdown! We threw it to Haynes. We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose.
Violent.
A couple of things about that game, and I was watching at a buddy of mine from high school opened a sports bar called CJ's in Georgia, and I was sitting there watching that game. And a couple of things came to mind when I was remembering it. Number one, for some reason, Tennessee squib kicked. Right there. Instead of kicking off deep, they squib kicked Georgia, gave them decent field position. Number two, Randy McMichael became a star on that drive. He made a one-handed catch that without that there is no hobnail boot. And then down to the 6-yard line, and that play. So if you hear the call right before, what's he saying? He's saying blue 44 or something like that. Anyway, he's letting Haynes know that it's cover 4 and that he's coming to him as soon as he gets the ball. That's what he's calling when he's calling out the snap count there. He's alerting him right there. And so right over the middle, Tennessee was undefeated on that day. I think Georgia was 2-1 maybe going into that game, something like that. And just it happened in Neyland. Can you imagine after that screen pass after that screen pass for 70 yards or whatever it was, how loud that stadium would have been? Because no one gets louder than Neyland.
Yes.
No one.
I was hot. Hot after Travis Stevens scored that touchdown, and then just flip the script, total jubilation. P44 Haynes. We got one more I think that CD Rob I think you said want us to talk about, and that's a very much an iconic play from just recently.
Yep, just a few years ago.
To the right. Snap to Young. Drops back. Pressure from the edges. He throws near sideline. And it's intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Near sideline. Breaks the tackle.
He's going to make it.
15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Georgia.
Listen to the booth. The most beautiful part about games and sports to me is how it can make grown men act like children. And that's like a kid that got the Xbox he wanted on Christmas morning. And that play, there's so many things out of it. So Dawgs are up 8. Bryce, the best player in college football, has the ball in his hand, and they're driving down the field. And I knew, and I mean I knew, because Georgia had gotten a couple of really hideous calls in that game, especially the fumble, right? The fumble incomplete pass. And they're coming down the field, and I just knew in my heart, Bryce is going to tie this game. He's going to score. They're going to hit a 2-pointer, and it's going to be, we're going to be talking about 2nd and 26 or whatever it was again, and my head's going to explode, right? And I was like, and then all of a sudden he drops back, 2nd or 3rd down. He drops back and throws that pass. Him and the receiver weren't on the same page. Keely Ringo leaps 40 inches when he didn't have to, but he still does, intercepts the ball. And I just, my memory from that is Kirby telling him to go down, and he didn't.
Yeah, he wanted him to get down. He didn't want any chance that he was going to get the ball knocked loose and give Alabama another chance at the ball on offense. That's what he was thinking, like a coach.
Yeah.
So the question was, which is the most impactful play in Georgia history? Do you have an opinion?
Yes. First of all, they are all on the Mount Rushmore of plays in Georgia history. No one disagrees with that, so let's get that out there first. Now, Troup and I also discussed a few more plays that we could add to the Mount Rushmore, but that might be a subject for another time. But for me, I look at it like this. Which play, by its very essence, validates and uplifts the other plays? And to me, and I know this sounds like recency bias, but to me, it's the Keely Ringo pick six that at that moment, all these other great moments were accentuated as, oh, those were just steps toward this goal. And in this moment, in this very moment, all of that came together. And all of the, Todd Gurley, and I'm talking not Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel crying on the field after they fell short. All of those things, they just provided, this is what it's been working for. And so for me, the Keely Ringo pick six in that moment provided that the period at the end of the sentence for all of those separate things. So for me, it's the Keely Ringo, and you got a different take, right?
It's definitely a play that you can gravitate towards and look at and say that was we clinched the national championship with that play. It was but I fall in. That was a great play, obviously.
Sure.
Again, top 3 play for sure. 8-point lead. I still felt pretty confident that our defense, that was that iconic defense that even if they drove down the field, Georgia was going to stop them. And they scored a touchdown. I'm thinking, George, you're not getting 2. The defense is locking you down. I was still enjoying that. I was not really that concerned. I celebrated like crazy when he had the pick six. But my play would be, and actually it's the oldest play that we mentioned, and that's the Lindsey Scott play, because without that, Georgia was losing in that game. If they don't make that play, they don't win they don't, because it was different back then. They wouldn't have had an opportunity to play in the national championship. That would have cost them. That doesn't happen. That cost them a national championship. Now, so that's where I fall on that. I think in terms of Georgia history, that's the most impactful play. I will say in terms of emotion, it's that play with Keely Ringo, as well as a play we didn't mention is in 2017 in the Rose Bowl with the direct snap to Sony Michel, took it to the house to send Georgia to the national championship. I mentioned it earlier in the pre-show. That was like, if you're a Braves fan, that's like Francisco Cabrera walking it off against the Pirates in '92.
Sid Bream,
that kind of jubilation and joy. But all 3 terrific plays. And that's a great question because there's debate and a good conversation with all of it.
Yeah. My reaction, so when you talk about those, I remember the Sony Michel walk-off touchdown. That was a jumping up and down, high-fiving people celebration. I lived out on a little mountain here called Montesano at the time. Jumping around, high-fiving, chest bumping. When Keely Ringo housed that ball, I collapsed on the floor. I was in what I think in yoga it's called child's pose. I was just in child's pose. I was just like, oh my gosh. For me, exactly in that moment, here in 40 years and all of those things, it was just over. It was weird in my head, as Georgia had always been considered an underachiever, populating the NFL, but never taking that final step to the elite. They were elite, but they weren't the elite. And in that moment, in my head, I thought you could win a championship and will it be over? But at the moment he crossed the goal line, I was like, it's all over. All of that talk is over. And then they just went out and proved it the very next year. But yeah, so I hope that helps answer your question, brother. And
maybe it does. Maybe it's the same argument he's having with one of his buddies. I will say the great thing about it is that Kirby Smart has even said on himself that he's right in the middle of his career. So lots more opportunities to have those type plays, maybe even this coming season as well and down the road. So we're looking towards the future. We love to reminisce, but there's going to be some great football ahead of us.
Yeah, two things. So Vince Dooley said, "Run, Lindsey, run's the best play in Georgia history." So I should have mentioned that. That would have helped bolster your argument a little bit. The great Vince Dooley said that. And I wanted to say one thing. The run back for Keely Ringo. If you want to know what it means to be a Georgia Bulldog, not a star, just a Georgia Bulldog, watch Dan Jackson at the end of that pick six. He just throws his body in front of a freight train and gets obliterated to keep that guy away from Keely. And that is, he could have given him a little bump. He could have done anything, but no. You talk about self-sacrifice. It was a yard sale of his equipment on the ground after that hit. But to me, that just epitomized what a dog is.
Yeah, we love it so much. We do appreciate the questions and the input. And we've done this before, Smooch. We had a comment a few weeks ago wanting us to talk more about Texas, and we obliged and had a Texas podcast as well.
Yeah. Also, and that also reminds me, so we've been in contact with Oklahoma. We've been trying to get some dialogue going with them, but Troup and I will be going on an Oklahoma podcast soon, and then we're going to ask them to reciprocate and do the same here so we can really begin welcoming into the discussion and debate and insanity these new SEC friends. So.
Yeah, I got a feeling the Oklahoma fans and podcasts, they're going to fall right in line with us in terms of hating Texas. So
yes,
right on that bandwagon.
They are already one step ahead. So.
Yes. So we do ask you folks to we appreciate your listenership. By the way, we do ask you to wherever you're listening to us, like, share, subscribe, give us a 5-star review again. And I'll also say our YouTube page is going bonkers right now. We've had some good weeks on that, and good comments and good back and forth. And but you can find it all at the Dawgs Show Pod, and that's on TikTok. We had a great week on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find us on at the Dawgs Show Pod.
I believe we did 30,000 on altogether on TikTok this week, and on YouTube you'll notice we're just getting that off the ground. But I will say this: we've quadrupled our followers in 3 weeks, but we're just getting it moving. But yeah, give us a subscribe there. We want to have that. We want to have our viewership on the video side of the pod on YouTube up before the season starts, so we can really carry some momentum through the year.
We're just about to hit 2,000 followers on TikTok, so that's right. That's definitely a milestone, I would say.
Yeah, that's about 1,800 more than I thought we'd have. So
another great episode, Smooch. 101 in the books. And anything you want to close with?
Man, I am very excited that we're going to be doing the week-to-week Delusion Index and ranking our top 5 most delusional fan bases. Troup and I kind of organically arrived at this idea together, texting today, and it has me all a Twitter for lack of a better word.
All right. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in. For Smooch Moncrief, this is Troup Brinson saying thank you and so long. We'll see you next week.
If you do not want to work, do not come to the University of Georgia. But if you want to win, come to the University of Georgia.
This is the Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.